Okay, so to finish off where we started last week, or finished off last week, we'll start with that. So basically, college students are a very particular population where stress is super high. And I actually really liked the answers you guys put. I think you were all very, very genuine and on target, and you guys all did freaking phenomenal. Some of you forgot the second question, so I want to make sure that I remind you in these in-class assignments, you're getting great on the questions. So if I say there's four items you need to answer, make sure you answer each item. It often helps to say question 1, question answer, question 2, right? So like today's in class that we're going to do here in a little bit, there are like 4 questions. Question 1, answer it. Question 2, answer it. So make sure you are thorough in actually reading the in-class, what I'm asking you to do. Okay, so let's go over what research over like doing surveys with college students across the country, what the general consensus for college students, what college students are saying, and you guys were on target. Social isolation and loneliness is one of the biggest ones, which is understandable, right? Especially for incoming freshmen who may not have, it's new. It's your stability is gone. New culture, new situation, new ways that like, I'm not going to hold your hand. If you don't show up, I don't give a shit. It's your money, right? Of course, I want you to. I want every student in this class to benefit from this class. I want to make the most out of your freaking money. But it's scary. It's scary. And what my expectations are, what's the difference between high school and college? Every professor is different, and every semester is going to feel like chaos in the beginning. That chaos can be really hard for people who are new and don't have a support system, don't have someone to talk to, don't feel included. Sleep disturbance is another one. Of course, I remember in the dorms, it was normal every day of the week to be up until 2 or 3 in the morning because it was fun. There's so much going on. Again, there's no one to tell you can't, right? Decreased, and that sleep disturbance is also associated with stress, right? Just not being able to fall asleep. Decreased exercise. So some of the exercise that all of you might have done prior to college may have been because you were involved in activities and sports. There was some regulation to your schedule, and now no one is going to regulate this for you. So if you aren't a student athlete who is required to, based on your contract, who is going to tell you to go work out and how to fit it in your schedule, especially again, if you do have sleep disturbance. Students that don't sleep well don't have the energy necessarily to exercise. So a lot of these kind of come together and affect each other. Weight gain is typical too. Some of this is normal growth. Like your bodies are still changing from when you're 18 to like 23. And for men, it's longer than that. Bone structure is still changing potentially. Have you guys seen high schoolers recently? Anybody? Do they look young and childish to you? Right. So when you're a senior, the freshmen are going to look young. How many of you are seniors? How many of the freshmen look young to you? Right, right. And so a lot of freshmen come in and think that nothing's going to change. Oh yes, your genes, your body, everything is still working. It's still growing. You're going to change. Your body, your face might be different. You're going to fill in a little bit. Don't criticize that. Don't judge it. So this is normal, but it can stress people out because there's so much judgment in our thin supremacy culture around natural weight gain. It's like we're supposed to all be 12 forever. And at least for women in particular, that population. And for men, it's totally different. Sometimes weight gain is amazing. It's awesome, depending on what your beliefs are. Which, again, negative body image, feeling as if there's something wrong with you or you've failed. This would be like telling a pregnant woman that if she gains body fat or her body changes after pregnancy, that she's a piece of shit, right? So as you freshmen and younger people coming in, as your body changes, one, do not criticize yourself because that creates more inflammation, that creates more problems. Maybe try to understand it. And we'll go, and there's, again, a lot of reasons for this. and some of which is stress induced. You're more inflamed when you're stressed. Your inflammatory markers go up. Inflammatory markers encourage high blood sugar. You don't even have to eat and your blood sugar is going to raise, right? Which makes your body more sensitive or less, food becomes less needed when you're inflamed, just like fight or flight. We're going to get into that today. Of course, there's increased alcohol and substance use, which can help medicate some of that stress. And what's another reason this would go up besides just trying to feel better about anxiety, stress? What's another reason that substance use might go up? Nicotine, pot, psilocybin, I don't care what it is. Why does this go up? Besides that, besides trying to feel better.
I was just gonna say environment, being in an environment when it's common.
Why would that be something that would be promoted? That's a good point. What is it about the new environment and that would promote it? Just say, just start partying, sitting. What else? Or maybe it's pressure for you to want to fit in, so it's not necessarily coming from others. It's the desire to want to feel that I'm easy. So I know for me, when I participate with my friends, I'm camaraderie. Let's share a glass of wine. I have old vintage cigarette ashtrays in my house. I love them. It's pieces of artwork. Why would I have them? To make the friends that smoke it, I'm not going to change to feel that they are safe with me. I'm not encouraging them to do it, but hey, you be you, right? There's a lot of social connection that is evolutionary, really important. There's nothing wrong with saying, hey, let's share a beverage. I want to feel connection. You smoke, I smoke, easy bonds. Like, you want to share the pipe? This is easy. This is a great way to feel safe with people, that you're not being judged. So it can be easy access for people who are socially isolated to all of a sudden feel like they might make a friend, right? So you're all right? But think of it from that point of view. How many of you, and you don't have to raise your hand, but totally relate to that? Because I do. I relate to that. That a lot of it has to do with bonding. Risk of illness. This is very highly attached to COVID and other people getting sick. So yeah, counseling services have been strained as well because of this increase, and not enough is available for students. I'm going to go through this pretty quickly. So college mental health services have improved a ton, but they're still lacking in enough providers. So if you wanted to get in, Boise State, I think, does an incredible job, but you guys know you can go in for free. You just show up. You have a problem, go, right? But you might not be able to get the follow through. I haven't checked on this, but it's hard to follow through the way you might need it. So you might not be able to get in every week. You might not be able to get in maybe once a month. And so you can imagine in a month's period of time, the amount of stress that is going to be accumulating or stacking for a college student. So this has been the real issue, and surveys have been done around the country. All colleges and universities are struggling, generally speaking. Some are doing better than others because they have the resources, they have what they need, and then you can imagine others may not have the resources. So that affects your timing. And so mental health providers express then, and there was a survey done amongst psychologists. So we're talking about the whole general population now. Psychologists are stressed themselves because they don't feel that they can provide adequately to the general population. That they're seeking help. Like by 50%, psychologists seeking their own stress management has gone up like a ton. So this is a very specific national issue to the United States, to our country. So persistent stress without having some relief, stress is normal. Our bodies are equipped to handle it physically, psychologically, emotionally. We are evolved to handle extreme amounts of stress. The problem is when it's prolonged over a long period of time, then it starts to really impact in someone's sense of it really, again, it's like weakens your sense of ability. So over time, the same thing feels worse. So before all the stress, you could handle that one situation. But when there's like 10 that have stacked up, it might make the one feel really intense. And over time, again, isolation, because you might have social anxiety, you might be thinking, you might be starting to feel paranoia. Some of those cognitive distortions from that CD quest you took, those are just 15 of them, might start to creep in. And they might creep in certain situations, not every situation, right? Like you might feel fine with your homework, but socially in isolation, you might feel extreme loneliness and you might think people are talking or don't like you or there's something wrong with you, right? You get rejected on a dating app over again, that's going to impact your sense of self because you're going to assume what's wrong with me. Perfectionism, that was mentioned as well, by multiple people in here. What is this connected to? I tried to comment a little bit in what perfectionists really struggle with. What is it that you guys think this is about?
Self-worth.
Yes, absolutely. Self-worth. What else? Anybody?
Your emotions.
Yes. Yeah. How many of you, and you don't have to raise your hand, but wrote expectations? High expectations. When you think about perfectionism, you probably have a really high expectation of yourself. That expectation might be coming from some ideals, like this would be amazing, right? So when expectations are set high, but they aren't, they don't give an allowance or a grace for reality, that's perfectionism. High expectations that don't include reality involved. There's no reality in the expectation. What it means is that you have to be in a vacuum, isolated from any deviation for it to occur. This is a symptom of fight or flight. This is not a personality trait. This is a symptom of fight or flight and mental health problems. The issue for a lot of people is that perfectionism has been worshipped in this specific culture. Not necessarily Boise State, I'm talking across the United States. Perfectionism is worshipped all over social media. A lot of the people that you probably follow might be like, you have to be perfect, whether it's fitness, beauty, makeup, unless there's some degree of reality in there, chances are followers are getting affected by it. Your sense of reality changes. We're going to go into so much detail on that one, but I'm going to keep on going. And then the other aspect of this is that if you don't understand your resources for coping, so if your way of coping, let's just say, is this one thing, like drinking alcohol, that can become a problem. But if you have more resources, then it's spread out. Then you're not necessarily going to have a codependency on one way of handling it. So not enough coping resources or poor resources that actually have consequences, right? Like getting super wasted has a consequence. So if you stay up until 3 o'clock in the morning, which might be fulfilling that need for inclusion or not being alone, but you got to get up. Like I had to train at 5:30 this morning, I had to be up by 5. Brutal, right? So you might then skip that class, or you might not show up to work. That has consequences over time that can add even more stress. Again, stacking stress. Okay, I am moving on to the next slide. So before I start, so did I post these slides? I don't know if I did in our Canvas. I don't think I did. That's okay. I'm gonna go to them. Hold on. I did post them. They are posted. So if you want to follow on your computer or look at these later, you can. This would be lecture 3. So we are going to move into, because we are in the mental health unit, I feel like we kind of beat that last slides to death. We're gonna kind of go into I have to start with the structure of like why humans get stressed about what we get stressed about. So we're gonna talk about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. This is his old pyramid. There is a newer one I will show you. I will quiz you on this next week or Wednesday. So take notes, and then the homework I posted for this week, due in a week from today, is to describe, not this one, this one was what he published in 1950 something. It's the newer one. I'll go over that here in a second. So before we go into this in class assignment, get in there, fill it out. So the question is, if you go into the assignments, the question is, if something cataclysmic happens, do you guys know what cataclysm is? It's a massive, destructive event. I know this is gonna seem really kind of dark, but I need you to think about this as if it's real, and then answer the question from a realistic point of view. Like really think it through. Don't give me your, oh, I'm privileged and no, go into this as if it's real, okay? And if you don't, I will know it. And I'll be like, you didn't think this through. Think it through. If something cataclysmic happened, for example, a massive bomb went off on campus and everywhere. And I hate to say this in a triggering way. So if you're triggered, I understand, but everything's gone. If you read the question, I set it up. No one is alive, but you come out of the rubble and you're like, holy shit, I'm fine. The question is, what would you do first, second, third, and I think there's a fourth, in order? There's no right or wrong answer, but there is some very predictable, it becomes predictable because we're all the same evolutionary wise. What's important in that circumstance? Everything's gone. You come out of it and it's you. You don't know anybody. You don't see any human activity. The answer you're gonna answer is after you've come to, out of the shock. What do you do after you come out of shock? Because of course your first answer shouldn't be, oh my God, I would cry and I would, no, that's like, you're still in shock. That's normal. I'm skipping that. After you come out of shock, what's the answer? What's your first thing you would do? The second thing you would do? The third thing you would do? And I think fourth. And go. I'm gonna make this really fast because of time, so 5 minutes. So you don't have to be super long in your answers, just definite. So 12 of you, find people. Actually, I'm gonna put it here. Okay, how many of you said I would try to find food first? Access to food, water, food and water. Number 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. How about safety? Find safety. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. What else? Well, so food, water, shelter, find others, place to sleep. Anybody write place to sleep? What's something else you guys, put on the list? You didn't know what, there's 4 questions, I'm pretty sure, wasn't
It
a
doesn't
4?
matter what order.
No.
I said just like find a place to sleep, like create like an environment where I could like stay.
Awesome. Anybody else have sleep?
I did like try to figure out how to contact parents.
Find others. That would be find others. Well, that's still finding contact or finding others. So if you did, how many of you put, I would wanna try to call people? Did you include that in finding others? Okay. What else? You guys can just say it. Cause there's multiple hands.
High ground.
Okay, so safety. Or would you agree finding higher ground would be finding some safety?
I said it for confirmation of the devastation to see how far and then to see if there was anything.
Why? Why would you need to do that?
See if I want to try or not.
So what, so, wait, if it's all physical, I'm not gonna work with it. Right, no, this is real, like, what the hell? So how would you categorize that? To me, that's safety. What would you categorize that as?
Looking for hope. Like wanting to see if
Okay. But that is trying to see what's out there.
Yeah. Find a purpose for life again.
So that I would say is in acceptance. Yeah, purpose for life. How many of you wrote that down? Sense of purpose. So would you say that would be why you were seeking high ground? Sense of purpose? Okay, I want others to, there's more. I think it's interesting. I want to hear it. What else?
Looking around and searching for something I can use.
So this would be like safety, food, environment, like resources. I'm gonna, what are you thinking of? Just like tools?
Yeah, tools, or something to use. Or things like living.
Right, like maybe something to hunt with. Right, that's a big one, would be how to get food and water. What else?
This like early, but like I would check like if I had any injuries.
That is the preface was, you're not injured,
Oh, I'm
you can
not
come out of it, yeah.
Okay.
Anybody else?
Is it only like the area that's destroyed, or is it like everything? Like,
All that you can see.
I feel like people are thinking like it's the end of the world and there's no one around you and have to like
Figure it out.
style it, but I feel like if you just like found shelter, you could like, I don't know, maybe like throw a signal out or something. I'm trying to.
Right.
It's not like everyone's dead.
Right, so you would at some
still
point
people
want
out
to
there.
see who is out there,
Yeah.
right? You would wanna find people, that would be find others. If there's any other survivors. Which one do you think would be the most important to do first? Of, let's say, that list. Say it out loud. Food, water? Who thinks food and water is first? Okay. I'm gonna put these in order of what's been studied. That's true. Who thinks shelter and safety is next? That's true. I mean, of course, you come out of it. Yeah, you need to get out of immediate harm, but let's say you come out of the rubble and it's like blue skies. You don't see anything else, right? I mean, circumstances can flip these around. Don't you agree? I'm not gonna answer these for you anymore. I'm basically answering it for you. What do you think is the third one?
Another people.
Who agrees with that? Totally. Why? Why do you think this would be so important?
For social features.
That's a luxury. Where it's a real reason why we need other people. Say it louder so the class can hear you.
Better chance to survive.
Who agrees with that? 100%. If you're, let's just say you are injured and there's another person, your likelihood of getting this one goes up. So the truth of the matter is, it's not about like, yay, we get to break bread together. It's literally about breaking bread together. Having fun is bonus, right? That's a big part of feeling like we're safe with each other. But the reality is, having just one other person in the wilderness or in any is like exponentially increases your probability of survival. Because if you get injured, you still have access to food, you have the ability to get help, right? This is hardwired into every single one of your brains. Every single cell in the brain, it's hardwired. And these can shift around. From here, right, you could even say there really is no 4. Because then sleep would be really important. Finding your safety has a lot to do with shelter. Right, so a lot of what we answered has everything to do, purpose, maybe, from here. Anybody want to add to that?
I would also say for people, you're gonna need a way to protect your resources at that point. Because I think there's gonna be a lot of fighting.
Yes.
For, basic necessities.
So how many people before this becomes, this has been theory, this is a real thing. How many people do you think it would take before there might be competition?
Yeah.
20-ish? 5 is actually a really good number. That's a really, each person you add, but there is a point of diminishing returns where there's competition. It's like 20. 20 to 30 is ideal. Because then you can, again, hunt or gather. Then there's mating, then there's all the things that go with that. But once you get a group of that many people, the first thing you need to think of, and again, if you go into this reality, would you, in that circumstance, if you're sharing resources with, let's just say 10 people, are you gonna be the one that wants to steal? Because what's the probability, what's the risk if you start stealing food with your group of 10? Say it out loud.
Someone might kill you or like.
So danger of being shunned, ousted. If you become someone that isn't adding to the benefit of the group, the risk is that they will kick you out. What does that mean if you get kicked out? Death. You're gonna die. Right, that is how human species lived for thousands and thousands and thousands of years. What has changed to our brain and our psychology? How long does it take for the way we're wired to actually adapt to an environment? To evolve, our DNA to evolve. Does anybody know the general amount of years? 6,000. 6,000. So when did this current abundance begin that we live in? Because we're rich. When did America stop being primarily third world country? 1600s, 1700s, 1800s. Right, like 100 years ago. Right, 100 years ago, 150 years between that period of time. So we're quite primitive, right? So you all tapped into primal knowledge. Primal knowledge already there. No one has to teach you this shit. You went right to it. I mean, it's hard to get someone to think that way who's never experienced that, right? So just getting you to take the question serious can be hard. Some people, and this is fine if you did answer this, I would be so depressed, I just would be upset, I'd probably just not do anything or go anywhere. That is super privileged thinking. That's how we think with our luxuries. That's not how we think when there's real problems at all. Okay. Moving forward. So Maslow, scientist, studied human behavior. He looked at humans and was like, I'm kind of sick and tired of kind of the Freud's picking apart humans, when really, because he started thinking from this perspective, Darwin and his idea, and was like, well, hold on a second. We didn't just evolve to have thumbs and to be upright and be bipedal and to have different colored hair, which is the most recent evolutionary change, by the way, is hair color differences. A lot of these people are predictable. Human behavior, I don't think, is so complicated. So he started studying human behavior, and he would interview people. He started primarily interviewing the most successful people he could, because he wanted to know if we're all somewhat similar evolutionary wise, what is it that they're doing compared to people who are like really struggling to survive? Why are they different with the same evolutionary DNA? So he didn't like that they were pathologizing stress, meaning there's something wrong with you being stressed. Maybe that's something we can diagnose. He did not like it. So on a side note, let's look at what you can study. So like symptoms of fight or flight or survival, which has been studied for the last 150 years by Pavlov. You guys heard of Pavlov and his dogs? They studied the fight or flight response and coordinated it with human physiology. Anxiety is survival mode. Fight or flight, that's how it's manifesting. Anxiety is the physical feelings of threat and the need to do something about it. All or nothing thinking. We've all been there. If I don't get an A, my life is over. It might as well be an F. If I don't eat this diet perfectly, I fucked up the whole day. I might as well quit, right? If I don't follow all of the religious rules, then I'm going to go to hell, right? There's no grace. There's no mercy. Perfectionism, again, is also a symptom of someone that is under fight or flight stress, because perfectionism is how the mind works when you need to survive. So let's just say you're getting chased by a bear. How much room for error do you have? None. Perfectionism. It serves a purpose evolutionary wise, right? If you're wanting to be included in a group and you believe that your inclusion requires following the group rules, you're probably going to do it more perfectly or dogmatically if you are scared to be excluded. If the risks are higher on exclusion, for example, if you're going to get kicked or shunned from your group, you're probably going to be more perfectionistic. Did that make sense, you guys? Right. Okay, let's keep on moving. OCD, symptoms of ADHD, narcissistic tendencies. We're going to actually have a whole lecture on narcissistic tendencies and the whole point of that and all the distortions. So what he studied is what is it that allowed these systems, cultures, some cultures thrive. So he started looking at humans again in tribes or packs, because he saw this as an evolutionary issue, and he saw, why is this group not suffering from those same issues that this group suffers from? He spent a great deal of time, well, before we get there. So he studied people like Albert Einstein, Eleanor Roosevelt, Lincoln, the 1% of college students he did interviews with, and he found there were some consistencies. He also believed that most psychologists study the crippled, study the people who cannot function, that are really limited. And he didn't think that that was beneficial, because in order to know, there needed to be a difference understood. Spectrum in between. Why is it that these people function this way and these people function this way? Just so you know, Maslow's work is still studied today. He is still, the more and more we discuss his theories, the more he's like way, way advanced in his thinking. This is Eleanor Roosevelt. So yeah, he was looking for human traits. Like, what is it about those who are more evolved and those that are more primitive? Knowing these differences allows psychologists to assess and look at systems and see what might be promoting why there might be systemic mental health issues. Why is it that college students are showing all of these different, these issues that maybe didn't occur 20 years ago? Social media, right? What is it about social media that might be triggering these primitive mechanisms? Because they're not new mechanisms. It's not like all of a sudden our brains have evolved to have some new mechanism. These are old mechanisms that are getting triggered. Why are college students responding the way they are? Again, what is it? Okay. So something that's really interesting that I think is, went backwards, it was supposed to go this then that. Maslow spent time studying the Blackfoot Nation. And much of his pyramid is based on their beliefs. This was a nation that was highly functioning at the time. No mental illness, right? And so when he spent the years he did studying what they believed and why and how they functioned, it really came to the pyramid I'm going to be showing you, where he was really based on their beliefs. Unfortunately, it was whitewashed because at the time, our racism in our country, if he had given them credit, people would have shunned his work. So a lot of people don't know that Maslow's work was based on the Blackfoot Nation. I want to make sure you all know that because it was whitewashed. No one knew. So he published in 1943 his theory of human motivation. We are predictable. Humans predictably act certain ways based on what needs have been fulfilled. And what are those needs? So we kind of, that's them right there. If they're not fulfilled, you're going to have anxiety, you're going to have panic, you're going to have, and again, chronically, you may have experienced depression. So his theory is based on this. So one of the questions I think I ask is this. What is his theory? Well, Maslow's theory. So you're in your homework, I asked this question. What is his theory based around? Maslow believed, and many scientists at this point believe the same, in fact, most, that human beings are wired to want to secure our vital needs first. What is required to survive? That if our physiological needs, food and water, are threatened, are not secure, that we become a little obsessed over it. I will tell you this as a person who in my past had an eating disorder. My access to food was threatened. I became highly obsessed about it. It was dangerous to eat. That means it's unhealthy. Danger, right? I can only have so much, so there's not access to get more. Right, and we will go way more into detail on those things when we go through our food section, but I became obsessed and then everything else became unimportant. College, volleyball, back, it was not important. So our motivations are based around the most important needs. If those needs are fulfilled, they kind of lose, they kind of go into the backdrop. Doesn't mean they go away, but they're in the backdrop, right? So if you know that you have a huge amount of food and plenty, chances are you don't have to focus on it all the freaking time. You might wake up in the morning and go, okay, what am I going to eat? What do I have? I think I'm going to go here. How many of you thought about when you were going to eat and where you were going to go today? Right. How many of you thought about the weather? Right. What is the weather attached to in this one? Yeah, environment. Right. These are all like, we're so predictable. So his theory was based around the fact that there is a very clear and obvious sequence of priorities. Food, physiological needs go first, environmental needs are second, people come third, right? From there, Once those three major needs are fulfilled, we go into more creativity. Cognition. So now we can prioritize like, ooh, let's make a cool tool to go hunt. We can get creative with different tools, right? Because our energy can be devoted towards other things. So this was what was published in 47 was it? So physiological needs, sleep, food, water. I think that's sex. That's actually been changed. That's more here with belonging. So we could say the environmental needs that we currently deal with is, how do I get transportation? Shelter, what's your living arrangements? Clothing, do you have clothing to protect you from the elements? Healthcare is really important. So if you get some super sick and you need an antibiotic, you have access to that antibiotic. So you can see that's environmental safety. You'll be able to, get something. If you break your leg, can you get it fixed? Can you be able to have mobility? That's feeling safe in your environment. Love and belonging would be your tribe, your pack, your community. And this is not just love. This is beyond that would be like extra. What do you think belonging really is about? Being included. What is that about? Anybody have a guess? Or what are your thoughts on that? Say it out loud.
Finding a sense of purpose.
What is that attached to? Because you're right. She said, a sense of purpose. Purpose for what? When it comes to survival, psychologically, what is purpose about in your community?
Wanting to live.
Contributing. We want to contribute. How many of you want to contribute? When you say purpose, right? How often do you hear, I want to do something meaningful? I want to contribute. I don't want to just be, I want to make an impact. I want to make an impact. How many of you have said, I really want to make an impact? That is a huge survival aspect. You're not special in thinking that. It's important, right? Because if you make an impact in your community, this feels very safe. We actually get high, right? So that's another thing about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, is your brain lights up the hedonic area of the brain, pleasure, safety. So as these are met and safe, you're getting high. We're addicted to food. We're addicted to shelter. We're also addicted to community because you'll die without them. So the evolved brain stimulated the pleasure center when those things feel secure, right? Anything above that is like amazing, right? Any questions about this old view? Okay, I think the new one's right here. Here is the one he published in 1972, again, continuing to use the research and the culture of the Blackfoot Nation. This was their model of spirituality, what the human being needs to find the spirit, to find their God, to find your Alma. These are vital for you to become spiritual, for you to become connected, for you to have, to feel safe and to evolve into a higher state of consciousness. So again, nothing changed here. Physiological needs, you need to know. What does that include? So in your answers for the homework due in a week, and again, I'm going to go over this on Wednesday. Again, what are physiological needs? Just say it. Food, water, excretion, air. So going to the bathroom is actually included. This one, safety. What's this? Healthcare too. Don't forget healthcare. Shelter, healthcare, transportation. Love and belonging. What's the thing that I was just describing? We all want to feel like we have something to contribute. This is the core of where self-worth is. That's the whole point of self-worth. What is my worth? Well, really, what is that in relation to? What is self-worth in relation to? Is it just you and yourself? Or does it have to do with, I am worthy of contribution? It has everything to do with the fact that we are primitive, primal pack animals. I want to contribute because that means I'm safe. That means I have a purpose. What do you think purpose is? Third hierarchy of need. So throughout this course, you're gonna hear me say first hierarchy, second hierarchy, third hierarchy. You need to know what those are right offhand. You need to already know. Esteem comes next. This is usually developed in junior high. You get a sense of accomplishment. We're gonna go over this on Wednesday. You have access to these slides, study them, look at them. You're gonna wanna know them for the rest of your life. If you haven't signed in, make sure you signed in. And any questions? I don't know. Just be here. I may or may not do it on, I don't know. Yeah, we were ready. Did you for this? Oh, well, maybe that'll be on Wednesday.
Well, is it up on the paper again now?
No, a new version. The whole homework assignment is based on this, and I wrote it in there. He is. Thank you. You're welcome. Thank you.